Hello and welcome to From Impossible to Inevitable. I am your host, Megan Bauer. Thank you so much for joining me today and for pushing play. I totally appreciate your love and your support and for all that you send to me energetically and through the internet. If you are new to the show and you're listening on a podcast platform, please know that there is a YouTube version in which you can watch every episode, and there's always a link to the YouTube version in the show notes for you to just click on. So you can watch me and the background, which will be changing soon. I know we've been staring at the same thing for a while. However, I'm really excited about what I'm going to do next. And so very soon, that will be so fun. And I'm so excited about it. Okay. So in episode 33, I talked about taking down big weeds bit by bit. And I used it as a metaphor for those gnarly habits that we have in our lives that we know we have them. They're obvious to ourselves, maybe not to others, but to ourselves. We see them. They're glaring at us. And they are just so in there. They are big, monstrous weeds. And I talked about just taking off the tops, taking off the little branches, bit by bit, taking their strength down until you can really get at that root and pull it out. Okay. I talked about that in episode 33. Later that same day that I recorded that, I went out and pulled some weeds. Let's be surprised. And I was pulling weeds from the grass. And I realized that the weeds in the grass are the worst ones. They're the worst ones because it's really hard to see where the root is. It's hard to get in there. And if they're pokey and thorny, like we've got some really gnarly weeds in our yard, in our grass, that I'm like, Jake, you have to pull these because they're going right through my gloves and I'm not that committed. So he does it. That's how our marriage works. And those are gnarly, but anything else, if it doesn't go through my gloves, I'll do it. It's fine. But the point is they're really hard to get at. And yes, we can call in a company or we can buy, weed killer and do all of that. I'm talking about, the manual labor of it. And sometimes you need external resources like that. You yourself, it's just not working out. I can't get at that root. It's just not working out. And there's nothing wrong with getting some weed killer. There's nothing wrong with calling in a company to come help you take care of the weeds in the lawn or in your yard for that matter. There's nothing wrong with the external help. The external help only goes so far though, because you have to maintain it. Especially as we look at this as a metaphor. You can get all the help in the world, but at the end of the day, you got to do the work. When we're using this as a metaphor, this is not a lawn care or weed control podcast, contrary to what it may appear. That's really funny. I'm hilarious. I'm the funniest person I know. I don't know if you know that about me, but I am the funniest person I know. I'm the funniest person Jake knows too. Anyways, the weeds in the lawn are the worst. So as I went out and I was pulling these weeds, and I just recorded this podcast 33 on taking down big weeds, I was like, so if those big weeds are the bad habits, and if we're using that metaphor here, weeds as habits, and we're taking it down bit by bit, what are the weeds in the lawn? And I was thinking, and it came to me fairly quickly. I was like, the weeds in the lawn are our negative thought patterns and thought habits that we have. Sometimes they're hard to identify. Like sometimes it's hard to be like, is that grass or is it crabgrass? I don't know yet. Or sometimes they're really easy. This is prickly and thorny, and it just keeps popping up in my mind. And it's a negative thought pattern or thought habit. Thought patterns and habits, we can use them interchangeably here because sometimes we are, like that phrase of like being in a rut. You can be thinking in a rut. If you've ever replayed conversations in your head and it feels like it's just on a loop, you're in this pattern of this conversation and you have to get yourself out of it. But it feels like you're on this hamster wheel and no matter what you do, you can't get off of it. These are the weeds in the lawn that are so much harder to identify sometimes and so much harder to remove, but they make a huge impact when they're gone because that really affects how you feel about yourself, how you feel towards others, how you perform, the things that you do, the way you treat others, the way you treat yourself. And all of that plays a role. And these are probably the most important thought or the most important metaphorical weeds you can remove are these thought patterns and thought habits, even though they're some of the most difficult because you have to break the cycle. And the way that you break the cycle is you can't just pull it out and leave a hole. It does not work like that. You have to replace it. I mentioned, I believe it was on episode 33, I mentioned that, no, it was episode 34, garbage in, garbage out. I mentioned that you need to, if you've got these negative thought patterns and thought loops, you have to replace them with good music, or uplifting motivational books, and have all of these positive, motivational, inspiring, encouraging, uplifting things surrounding you to help fill that hole. You can't leave a void. Fill it with light. Fill it with whatever makes you feel like you have a sphere of light that can heal the hole and bring out all of those good vibes, if you will. Because you have to replace it. You can't just, the hole doesn't work. Just notice your thoughts. Notice your thoughts for a little while. Notice where they go. Notice those thought patterns, those thought habits. And a lot of these too will come at certain times. I've noticed that as I get ready for bed, for whatever reason, as I get ready for bed, my thoughts turn a certain way. And it's not a great way. It's a bad habit. It's a bad thought pattern. And so before bed, I have to make an effort to not fall into that habit, to not fall into that loop, to not start thinking those thoughts, because I start thinking one and then there's another and then there's another. And before you know it, I'm going to bed feeling like crap. And that is not how I want to end the day. And I get to control that. I get to control the thoughts I think all day, but especially at night when I tend to fall into those habits of negative thoughts. And what I do, what I read, what I consume, as far as what I listen to or occasionally watch, I don't watch TV or movies hardly ever. But sometimes I'll watch something with Jake, and depending on what that is before bed, All of those things make a difference on the thoughts that are in my head as I go to sleep. And that makes a difference on my sleep. And then that makes a difference on my morning. And that makes a difference on my day. And it becomes this big cycle. And I can control, to a point, how that goes. And I'm always astonished that I have more control over that than I give myself credit for. Because if I go to bed having put all of this goodness into myself, then I sleep better, then I wake up more refreshed, and then I have a better day. And the cycle goes in a much more beautiful way. So, observe your thoughts. Observe the times of day, if they have a habit, if there's a time of day, if there's a certain situation or a circumstance or whatever that might trigger it, and aim to break that trigger, break that cue, and control which way your thoughts go. And if you're headed downhill fast, pick up a motivational, encouraging book, push play on one of my podcasts, push play on somebody else's podcast that's encouraging and motivating. What I would encourage you to not do is numb out. Don't avoid it. Tackle it. Don't get on your phone and start playing games or scrolling social media to avoid it. Look at it, pull it out, and replace it with something uplifting, positive, encouraging, motivational, inspirational, whatever the word is that doesn't make you gag, that makes you feel better. Replace it with that. Don't numb out. Don't pretend it's not happening, because that doesn't help either. Because you can eliminate the weeds in the grass. You can stop the negative thought patterns and the negative thought habits. You can replace them. They're a little bit harder. They're a little bit trickier. They might require some help. If you need help, go get professional help. There's nothing wrong with that. Get professional help all the time. And that's fantastic. And then do the work. Do the work. Because you deserve to have good vibes. You deserve to feel good. You deserve to be able to treat others well because you've treated yourself well. You deserve to have a nice, beautiful lawn without any pricklies or uglies in it. You deserve that, and you can give it to yourself. That's what I have for you today. Thank you so much for joining me. I appreciate you. I send you my love, and I wish you the best. Until next time, bye for now.